introduce? Anybody? Have I missed anybody? I know we have the parliamentary team. Okay, thank you. Before I get to the permanent secretary, just to indicate how we plan to proceed today, the Ministry of Labor, the Ministry of Local Government had tendered an apology because there is an event today that they're involved in. And in discussions with my colleagues and the Auditor General, we believe it's in the best interest of having a fulsome discussion for us to have the substantive discussion when the ministry and its representatives can be here, which is going to be next week, Tuesday. But the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation will not be available next week, Tuesday, and there are some issues specific to that ministry. So how we plan to proceed, I'll invite the Auditor General to give her summary, and then I'm going to ask the PS in MECJC to comment on the specific areas related to that ministry, and then we're going to defer the discussion on the other matters. And the main reason for this audit is a cross-cutting audit, which covers substantively how relief is provided to residents of the country, mainly from the Ministry of Labor and the Ministry of Local Government. And what I don't want is to have a discussion today and then next week to have another discussion which may be contradictory or confusing. But I want to thank all of you who took the time to be here, because there are many public servants who are here, but I just want to let you know how we plan to proceed. Mr. Cousins, Member Cousins doesn't come very often, so he's catching up with his colleagues who are here. But let me invite the Auditor General to give her a summary. Which one? I'll invite the Auditor General, and then the PS will... Sorry, my apologies, 1 second. Members, we have minutes in front of us from the meeting held on Tuesday, April 24th. Can I invite someone to move for the confirmation? This was the meeting where we substantively dealt with the annual report. It's a fairly short set of minutes. Member Sibley's moves for the confirmation. Seconded.
So move.
By, Member Carencia, you're there? All right, so
yes,
seconded
sir.
by Member Morrison. Any matters arising from the minutes, members? Mr. Chin, I see that you're in two places because you were online, but that might be a function of how you plan to function. You leave in one seat to go to another seat. So you're in two places at the same time.
Chairman, we are hearing you.
You're not hearing me. I was just saying that Member Chin
Chairman,
seems to be in two
you.
places. Anyway, we get along well, so don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. Madam Auditor General, I invite you.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. If you just allow me just to provide a summary based on
Sure.
the information contained in the report. So, efforts to reform Jamaica's social safety net was initiated in 2000 with the Social Safety Net Reform Program, which identified duplications and other shortcomings in the distribution of social benefits. The SSNRP revealed overlaps in the social benefit programs in the poor relief departments, underscoring necessary reform, including strengthening the legislative framework to better serve vulnerable population. As part of the SSNRP, the Ministry of Labor and Social Security drafted a National Assistance Bill to enact legislation aimed at repealing the Poor Relief Act to enhance social welfare delivery. The SSNRP recommended the consolidation of 3 major income transfer programs: food stamps, old age and incapacity allowance, and the outdoor poor relief, into one program under a single agency responsible for social security, aligning with international norms and best practices. The Vision 2030 National Development Plan and the Social Protection Strategy recognize the importance of having adequate laws in place to improve social protection services. In 2009, The Vision 2030 National Development Plan identified infrastructure and legislation as key obstacles to effectively deliver the effective delivery of social protection and outlined the need for improvement in these areas, and namely inadequate legislation, inadequate system of targeting the vulnerable, and inadequately resourced and managed system of welfare delivery, amongst others. In that regard, the audit was undertaken to evaluate the effectiveness of the program's administration, efficiency and gaps in service delivery, identify duplications if they exist, and highlight best practices and opportunities for improvements. The audit identified that there was a general failure to implement the long-standing reform measures aimed at creating a more streamlined and effective system of social benefit management. Consequently, the audit found that deficiencies identified decades ago pertaining to overlap of social benefit programs and less than optimal structure for benefit distribution persisted. The prompt that was circulated, Mr. Chairman, sets out more specifically the issues that we believe are pervasive across all agencies involved in the service delivery. That's it, Mr.
Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, Madam Auditor General. PS, could I just invite you to introduce yourself and the team that is here from MEGJC?
Yes, thank you so much, Chair. Today, I'm accompanied by, well, my name is Arlene Williams. I'm the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation. With me are Mrs. Authreen Scarlett, who is the Chief Technical Director, who was having oversight responsibility for the housing portfolio. Mr. Richard Cargill, who is the Project Director for the new social housing program. Mrs. Judith Rob Walters, our Principal Finance Officer, is right behind me. Ms. Nika Adams is our Principal Director, Corporate Services. We have behind her Ms. Leandra Trapman, who is a Senior Technical Coordinator in my office, as well as Ms. Monique Gibbs, who is a Senior Director, Strategic Planning, Performance Monitoring, Evaluation, and Risk Management.
Thank you, PS. As I indicated, there are some specific issues related to MEGJC, which really revolve around the housing, the short-term housing program. So I want you to address those concerns, since you have indicated that you won't be here next week when we deal with the broader issues. And Madam Auditor General, I think my recollection from your report is that you had identified 4 programs that were designed to deal with housing, short-term. I know I saw that. It's 6. Okay, all right. Well, PS, if you could indicate how your program works, the interaction or the coordination with other programs within other ministries, which is really what the main concerns highlighted by the Auditor General's report.
Right. So Chair, if you will allow me just to, for the edification of the members, just to provide a brief overview of the programs, specifically as they relate to housing. So the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, as a ministry with responsibility for housing, acknowledges the right of every Jamaican to adequate shelter. Through the powers vested in the Minister of Housing by virtue of the Housing Act of 1969, the ministry has historically sought to assist the most vulnerable in our society who reside in poor and substandard conditions and who do not have the resources nor the capacity to improve their circumstances through the social housing program. The program has undergone several changes over time. However, it always has been characterized by a general acceptance of our responsibility to provide a safety net for vulnerable segments of the population as an integral component of an inclusive approach to the provision of shelter. This is in line with the National Housing Policy and Implementation Plan, which was approved by Parliament in 2023. The program is primarily grant-based, with beneficiaries being provided with assistance to purchase material to build, rebuild, or effect repairs to an existing structure. In special circumstances, however, such as where a house is destroyed due to fire or the house is beyond repair, beneficiaries are provided with a complete unit. And this is where the new social housing program comes into play under the HOPE program. So between 2018, 2019, and 2023, 2024, the program has assisted some 7,765 families at an approximate cost of $503 million. In 2012, the government of Jamaica and the Food for the Poor signed a 5-year agreement to jointly increase the provision of wooden houses for poor and indigent persons in Jamaica. Under the agreement, 1,200 housing units were to be supplied, and funding for the program was provided through the GOJ's budget and grant funding from the Petro-Caribe Development Fund. Although funds were allocated for the 2017-2018 financial year, the program was not continued after August 2017, and cabinet approval was obtained to change the use of the funds to support the new social housing program, which was launched in 2018 as part of the broader Housing Opportunity Production and Employment HOPE framework. The NSHP, the new social housing program, is built around 3 components. 1, the construction of new homes for vulnerable families with a maximum of 5 units per constituency each year. These are single detached units. And 2, the relocation of vulnerable persons and communities, especially those living in disaster-prone areas. And 3, the upgrading of tenement yards, or more commonly known as big yards, but we want to call them multi-housing facilities, which is a more proper name. So thereby improving shared living spaces for several families at a time. As at present, a total of 292 housing units, or 671 rooms, have been completed under the new social housing program, benefiting over 1,054 persons. The Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation notes the recommendations emanating from the Auditor General's recently concluded audit of government social benefit programs, and would like to advise the members of this House, as well as those listening, that we have taken the opportunity to review and, where deemed necessary, tighten our processes. We have, for example, revised our operation manuals for both programs, that is the new social housing program, as well as those that fall under the social unit, services unit, to address the gaps identified. Additionally, having regard to the audit's view that the programs were largely paper-based, the ministry has for some time now been planning to implement a database-driven system, and as such, the system is being developed with the Information and Communications Technology Authority, former eGov, and it will be evaluated by the end of the second quarter of this financial year. On the matter of duplication, Chair, we have sought to clarify that the new social housing program is unique, as it is focused on full unit construction and includes tenement upgrades and the relocation of vulnerable communities. The social housing program, on the other hand, is a grant-based program where beneficiaries are provided with grants to assist with repairs or rebuilding efforts. Notwithstanding, we are pursuing a strategic review of the organization structure for the 2 social housing programs that are being run in our ministry. And we have started by undertaking a complete mapping of the process flows for both programs, with revised workflows developed to reflect recommended changes to our operations. We have also retained a senior HR consultant to assist us with this process. The ministry is also, and Madam Auditor General, we didn't see it in the report, but we thought, Chair, that it was important to advise the House that we have also been pursuing our ISO 9001 certification, and this will speak to things like some of the key performance indicators, which you had indicated from your report was missing when the audit was done. And so we are very much active in that process, which should come to conclusion within the upcoming months. So that will bring some amount of even more greater structure and streamlining of our processes. And so we are also taking steps to forge key strategic partnerships with the other MDAs to eliminate the possibility of duplication of efforts and benefits. And I would have noted from the Auditor General's report the whole thing about beneficiary fraud and the probability of it happening. Just to advise Chair as well as members of the House that we have a cross-cutting committee which comprises representatives from the Ministry of Labour, the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development as well, the National Housing Trust, the Hard NSTA Trust, and some of those entities are there on the committee. And so there's usually the cross-checking, the checks and balances just to ensure that persons do not double dip or benefit more than one time from the programs that we offer. So in closing, the ministry is committed to improving its processes as we seek to ensure that every Jamaican has access to safe, affordable, and adequate housing, thus restoring the dignity of the intended target groups. And Chair, we are open to provide further clarification for any questions that will be asked at this time.
Thank you, Pierce. I'm going to start, and as a member of Parliament, I do have some questions. I haven't been able to benefit from the social housing program primarily because while there are many in need, the issue of land tenure and to put bluntly, the persons who need the homes have no tenure at all. They are what we would call squatters. In some cases, the lands are government-owned lands. In other cases, they are privately owned lands. My question would be, is there any mechanism, if they are government-owned lands, for those persons to benefit? Because the people who generally have tenure are not necessarily the ones in need, but the ones who are in need have no tenure. So that's one question. The second question, I am aware of the work done by the ministry, and it's good to put a face to her name, Mrs. Scarlett. And the ministry administers the grants that are provided through various hardware. Are there other mechanisms outside of those specific grants that residents can benefit from? For example, we just got an allocation, so I know about that. But outside of those set allocations, are there mechanisms specifically through the ministry, and how would a resident who has a need, because most of us as MPs would use our constituency development fund to deal with, people who come to you on a day-to-day basis. So I want to know what mechanisms are there through the ministry specifically to address those.
All right, so thanks very much for those questions, Chair, and I'm happy you've raised the matter of the land tenure, which has been a persistent problem that we as a ministry are grappling with. And so for the new social housing program, the modality, one of the most popular and common modality, as I would have mentioned before, is the single detached units, and persons have to come with their own lands. Either they own the lands or they have permission, usually through a deed of gift, to use the lands. And this continues to be a problem because not many persons own the land or have permission to use the land. And so we have recognized that this has been a significant challenge over the years. Some time ago, I know under the former Permanent Secretary, Audrey Sewell, some letters were drafted to members of Parliament to look within their constituencies. Some have responded to see, just to advise the Ministry of Lands that are available. We're still doing the assessment to see how much that has yielded. But what we do know is that there are lands that are vested in the Commissioner of Lands. And we are looking now, we have a good database and a fairly good idea of where these lands are. It continues to be a problem because, as you know, persons are very attached to where they live. And in some of the instances, it will mean relocation of these persons from where they live. So we in the ministry are looking to see how we can roll out this land bank and how persons who do not currently own lands can benefit. And we also want to touch on the matter of relocation of vulnerable communities as well as the tenement upgrade that I've alluded to earlier. In fact, we have been implementing these modalities, and the Director of Hope will be able to further elaborate on this, where the lands belong to the government and persons after some time will get the opportunity to own these lands as we look to give them titles. It's a process and it takes some time. In terms of the other question that you've asked about the grants, you would have mentioned the special housing assistant grant that is in the sum of 330 million this year, where each member of parliament was allocated 5 million. And in fact, we can provide a more fulsome update to the House at some point in time as to how well these grants are being allocated, MP. I suppose you have always been one who has been compliant, so I think that you would have submitted the information on the beneficiaries.
Well, if there are people who haven't, then you must give it to the people who are compliant. If there are
agree.
people who are not taking advantage of their funding, then, I mean, the need is humongous. I
Yes.
mean, obviously, residents are appreciative of what they get, but you could double it. But I would shudder to think that colleagues haven't taken advantage of that.
Yes, and so Auditor has provided an update, which I can at some point disclose to the House as to the utilization of this. And we had discussed with our minister, who is the Prime Minister, the probability of inserting a timeline for the use of, because as you have said, Chair, it is really not fair to those who are making steady efforts to utilize their grants while others are at ease in Zion. And so that too, in terms of just not a complete housing unit, but if you want to repair, for example, your roof, some repair to buy a couple sheets of zinc to fix your house, that is available. Autherine, I'm going to turn over to you so that you could further address the question that Chair has asked in terms of the other mechanisms that are in place. And Chair, I just want to say that in terms of, we would know that there's a differentiation in the new social housing program in that this is constituency driven, where it's actually the MP who would largely submit the names and the application for the beneficiaries. For this one now with the grants, anybody can write us. You know, a JP can write, the person can write, and we do get a number of letters. And the assessment is done to, you know, we go out and we look to see to what extent these persons are really in need. And so, Autherine?
Yes, sir.
Just put the mic, just move across the mic, yes.
So, yes, Chair, just to add to what PS has said or to provide some more clarity. So the grants that you're speaking about, like the $5 million grants, those are special cases, but consistently the social housing program is there that is providing assistance to whoever needs assistance. And as PS just said, anybody can request. So the person who is in need can request, the MP, a JP, a concerned neighbor, just write into the ministry, providing us with the details. We go out, we do the assessment, and where we deem that, yes, this person is in need of assistance, then we try to help. As it relates to the question that you asked about persons not being able to access because they're not owners of the land they live on, and in some cases they are government-owned lands, what we do in such cases, we reach out to the landowner. So we will write, for example, to the NLA to say, this person is living on this land, they have applied to us for assistance. Do you have any objection to their continued occupation of the land and to our repairing the unit? And then based on their response, we will assist. So we do understand that the matter of land tenure is something that is problematic, but we try to work as best with persons. So for example, we will reach out and we will say, persons have been living here, these are generational lands, they don't have any documentation. We will accept affidavits from persons who are familiar with them, who can say, yes, I can attest to the fact that this land was owned by John Brown, who is the grandfather of the current occupant. They have been living here unmolested, and yes, you can provide assistance. So we do try to help because we understand the situation in that regard.
Before I invite my colleagues, as a urban MP is a little more challenging because you'll find that you have multiple persons living on a piece of land, and you can't really pick out one and say you're going to go build a house for one when everybody is pretty much in the same situation and everybody would want a unit like that. And that is, it may be different in rural areas, but that is generally the case in my own constituency. And certainly for the privately owned lands, it's almost impossible because of, you know, where my constituency is located. It's generally very prime land, so privately owned persons are not going to give permission for that kind of thing because at some point they want back their lands to generally do commercial type development. So, you know, for me, it's particularly challenging. It may be a little bit different in a rural situation. But I know my colleagues are waiting to ask. Member Cousins and then Member Sibley's.
Thank you, Chairman. PS, good morning. Good morning to your team as well. Earlier reported that 292 houses have been delivered under the new social housing program, whilst we have 5 recommendations or 2 per constituency. That would put us at, say, 300 recommendations per year. And between the periods 2018 to 2024, a 6-year span, that would be over 1,800. Yet I'm seeing here where only 292 were delivered. Can you say how many applications you received over that period and how many of those applications were accepted, are in the process of being constructed, or were denied? Also, you referred earlier to the fact that there was a previous program between 2012 and 2017 that between the government of Jamaica and Food for the Poor, and it was, I think, 1,200 houses were targeted for distribution under that program. Can you say between 2012 and 2017 how many houses were actually delivered under that program that the new social housing program replaced? Thank you.
All right, so let me contextualize what you have asked MP Cousins. So in terms of, to date, we have constructed, these are complete units now, 292 units. And this is coming from 57 of the 63 constituencies. Correct me, Richard, if I'm wrong. 57 of the, so when you do the maths, we have 63 constituencies. So it would mean that 63 times 5 would be 315. So if all the MPs are submitting their 5, and there's a caveat here because sometimes the applications, when they come to us, are not complete. And we have been holding the MPs' hands. We have been sensitizing the persons who are potential beneficiaries so that we can have documents that are more complete. Also, the issue too of the land tenure continues to be a problem because we do receive applications from MPs, but the persons do not own the lands, nor do they have their permission to use the land. So I'm giving Mr. Cargill the time. Yes. So Richard, if you could just advise how many. And we have a breakdown here of where these constituencies are
Sorry,
and
one
the number
second.
of.
Members, I'm just going to ask you to release your mic so I can allow Mr. Cargill. Press back your button.
Morning, Chair, morning, committee members and colleagues. Yes, Mr. Cousins, we expect MPs to submit 5 applications per annum. In your case, Mr. Cousins, we have only received 13 applications from the program started. However, we'll understand that a lot of MPs are not compliant. They will submit applications that are incomplete. And there's a lot of land tenure issues, and we have to basically hold MP hands as well as talk directly to the beneficiaries. So that is where the gap is, Mr. Cousins. Why we have not constructed the 315 by 6 years? The 1,000, whatever the calculation is, Chairman. Because
So basically, the land tenure issue is really the main one, which
issue.
is a stumbling block.
Yes,
Yeah.
Chair.
Okay.
And as well as the complaint, we have not gotten the 5 applications per annum from members of parliament.
Right. I mean, in my case, you wouldn't have, because I can say, in the people who come to me and request it, and then when I say, do you own the land? I know you don't own the land, but can you get permission from the person who owns the land? In the majority of cases, the person who is on the land is not the legal owner. And that person has been on the land from Wapikilfilo, and the legal owner, you can't find the legal owner. So I know in my case, I have not been able to take advantage of it, principally because of the land tenure issue.
I've got an application from you, Chair, I think, but the government had owned the land, but that land was earmarked for
development. I know that one. That I think is Swallowfield.
Swallowfield.
Right, and again, because of the proximity of that land, there were other plans for it.
Yes, Chair.
Yeah. All right, I have 3.
So, Chair, there was another question.
Well, turn on your mic now. So, all right.
We did not respond adequately to MP Cousins' question
Okay.
in terms of how many houses. I had mentioned the 2012 initiative, and so 1,200 houses were supposed to be provided per year, but up to August 2017, it was actually 3,741 houses that were. The shortfall, if you do just to subtract, you see that there's a gap of about 2,200 and something there. And largely, I'm advised that this was due, the shortfall was due to the land tenure matter.
Thank you, PS. In terms of the number that was provided earlier, that is the 292 houses. Is that 292 delivered per year or since the initiation of the program? Because I think there's a confusion there.
Since the start of the program.
Since the
Right,
start
since
of
the
the
start of
program.
the program.
Yes.
Yes.
Because, and that's why I asked the question earlier, how many applications were received overall? I know 13, as pointed out by Mr. Cargill, received from me. Of that, only 1. The others were recommended by the previous member of parliament. I became MP in 2020.
And we would have
why many of us are hesitant to make recommendations.
No, but MP Cousins, I would have to look to see what
I
were,
know,
what,
allowing the PS to
we
finish.
would have to look to see to what extent those applications that were submitted met the stipulated requirements. You know, because the truth of the matter is, I still would have to credit the program for its performance. It started in 2018, as being approved by Cabinet, conceptualized in 2018, and we actually had actual units being delivered in 2020, and up to that time period, we are just now. And to give a more fulsome picture, while we say 292 units have been constructed, we still have 46 units, an additional 46 units, which are at varying stages of the procurement process, and another 75, I think, which are going to commence the process during this financial year. So that will give you a more fulsome picture as to how we are performing. we try as best as possible, and I really want to give credit to the former PS Audrey Sewell, to look at the applications when they come, and we do not see color, because indeed the project oversight committee is chaired by a technocrats, and we have civil servants on there. And so each MP has the responsibility of submitting 5 applications, and they'll tell you they are here. When the applications come, they are not properly completed. And there has to be this toing and froing and backing and forthing. The land matter, as we say, continue to be an issue. So, you know, when we speak, I just really want it to be in a very holistic way, because we do make every effort in the ministry to ensure that we are meeting the demands that are there within our budgetary allocations, of course.
Well, well, no, there's an order though. I had Member Clark, the problem is Member Sibley's thing was before you. But go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I want to add something here that my colleagues asked some point in questions. And right off the bat, if you should just take the question theoretically, then yes, you will have a serious point. But I also want to add to what Madam Pierce has said and what Mr. Cargill mentioned, is that land tenure is of great importance. And whilst many of the persons who we want to get those social housing are unable to provide land titles to say, or even a letter to say that, yes, you have permission to build a structure, we must also understand that many times the lands that are available to those persons are very hilly. And so the cost to even prepare the foundation to put down that house goes beyond the amount of the money, beyond the amount of money that it would take to construct the house. And so many a times we as Member of Parliament will make submission and we leave it right there. And it can't be. You have to say to those that you are seeking to serve, to say that this can't work, this can work. You have to twist arm to get some things done. Because, again, I am rural urban in my case. And yes, I have the same situation like you. Those who are in the urban situation don't own the land. You and I understand exactly how they get there. And so they will never get the house that they so desire. Those in the rural area, they are on a hillside. To bring the material to where the house is supposed to be constructed is beyond reason, Mr. Chairman. And so I want my colleague to understand certain things. You're my colleague. You're not my colleague? No, man, you are my colleague. You raise a question. You raise a question. The next thing, Mr. Chairman, is that he may mention of poor relief. I heard him making mention of the poor relief houses. 2 different structures. One is concrete, one is board. You, in the case of the poor relief, I remember you asked the person who applied to create a foundation so they would already establish where the house is going to be. The cost is borne for the foundation on them. Poor relief only come and put down the board structure on top of what they are given. And so it is 2 different kettle of fish. Food for the poor, sorry. Food for the poor.
All right. Member Sibley's, then Member Witter.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank the PS and her team specifically for the work that they have been doing. Unlike my friend, I would have put in application more than the 5 per year. That, you know. But the challenge is always the land tenureship. And I want to thank the team, Chair, because they have been so helpful along the way in communicating to the would-be beneficiaries that they are unable to go further at the ministry because of a number of things.
Testing. Go ahead.
They not only, Chair, just refused an application. An application is not refused totally until they would have come up with a number of recommendations. And sometimes the amount of calls I get to assist the family, assist them in calling a cousin who lives in the UK to call a father who lives in the US. And so I want to thank them for the effort that they have put into the social housing program. I have only received 7 out of all my application, but I am of the understanding, I think I have probably put in about 60-something applications, right? Even though they are telling me that I can't put in so much. But when the people come to you, Chair, and they come to you with their needs, you know, you still have to make an effort to help. It is for the ministry to tell us that no, we can't get it, but we continue to push to make sure those that are in need can have a hope, a glimmer of hope that they can get something. So I just want to thank the ministry. One of the thing I want to ask is with regard to the social grants. Is there a ceiling for social grants? For the social grants in your ministry?
We have in the ministry put a ceiling of 400,000.
Very well, very well.
Yes.
You see, when I read the report, Chairman, and I see that there is an issue with overlapping of beneficiaries. But Chair, sometimes when residents, people who are in need come, and they say part of their house has collapsed, and you send them to the ministry, 400,000 sometimes is not enough. So they will traverse other ministries, and they are usually open with telling the ministry that I tried the MP office, and all the MP office can give me is $50,000 based on the scope of the CDF, you know, and so the overlapping is not necessary. I want to put it out there. It is not necessary that persons are trying to benefit and to profit from it. They are trying to reestablish their home. And so that is something that I am aware that citizens, when they come to us, they're not going to get enough sometimes. They're just not going to get enough. And they still will go to the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. And they will still go to wherever, even private sector, so that there can be a partnership in helping them to get back on their feet. And so, and most of these grants, as they are called grants, they do have a ceiling. I don't know, Chairman, if you have experienced the same thing with your constituent.
Yeah, because what we can, I mean, given the magnitude of the request, you can only give a relative small amount, and you're trying to help as many people as possible. So if you give somebody $50,000, them can buy some zinc, some lat and thing, but it not going to fix the whole of them roof. We know that. So they are going to be seeking assistance from other places.
So the other question I have is with regards to the issue of data, database, the sharing of database, our central database. The red flag, I don't know if it is an appropriate red flag per se, but that is with the Data Protection Act, to what extent that would limit some of the sharing of data. So that I want to know if the PS have asked our legal team about that. I know you said that you are developing a database system, but one of the key issues of the auditor's report is that the silo. I think the major issue here was that there should be a central database system, right? But in your response, you indicated that the ministry is now going forward with a database. So I want to know if doing the central database will pose an issue for the Data Protection Act, if you got any legal opinion on it.
All right, so thanks for that question. If I may, before I answer that question, Chair, I just want to just for the edification of the members in terms of the number of units, so that I give a fulsome picture of how the program is performing in new social housing. So I would have said that there are 292 units that have been completed to date, but also to indicate that there are 46 that will come to conclusion very soon, and there are 65 which are now at the procurement stage. So when we do the addition, it's actually 403 units that we are going to be having in very short order. To the matter of the database, we have in the ministry retained a data protection officer. And I recall that when the Auditor General's department came, there was a reference to the TRN that was not there because, of course, based on what we were advised, this would have to be kept in a very confidential way. But we did say that we had that information that could have been made accessible to the team. What I'm getting from the question, though, is the need for computerization, for the database to be developed, and we have taken that on board. We have, to date, developed a database for HOPE, as well as for our various grants that we administer. We do have those databases now developed, and we are actively populating them. I'd wanted Mr. Cargill to project our database. And so we will ensure that all our data sharing activities are going to be in line with the Data Protection Act. I also read the report very thoroughly, Madam AG, and I know there was a mention of the government's centralized database that would lead to even greater levels of efficiency. And we had a discussion with the Minister of Housing some time ago, and also with Permanent Secretary from local government, would have preceded you, Madam Jennings, with Mrs. Risden, as well as myself, as to what our database could look like. And I note that the Ministry of Labor and Social Security does indeed have a database at present. And so we discussed as a team what the comprehensive overall database would look like. So there are efforts in train to ensure that we have that overall database. So even in terms of what we are doing in the ministry, we have developed it in line with former eGov. I keep forgetting the new name, ICT. We are making sure that there is compatibility in what we are now using that will now feed into this larger database. I can't give a timeline because that will have to be the subject of further discussions between the government as well as the various ministries that are involved. But we are taking our own steps internally in the ministry to ensure that we have databases in place that will feed into this larger database.
Madam AG.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I just want to clarify a matter because I don't want it to be misunderstood. The intent, well, not the intent of the audit, but what we are concluding. We're not speaking about overlapping or duplication of benefits paid to beneficiaries. The focus is on the programs. And let me in fact, we believe that because the program is so fragmented, it serves as a disadvantage to the beneficiaries because they have to be moving from different entities to actually access the benefits and to be aware of the benefits that that's available to them. And I'm just going to read section 3.3 of the report. In the context of Jamaica, the various social programs have similar objectives and overlapping functions, covering parts or same areas of interest with little or no coordination in the distribution of the benefits. So the focus is on the overlapping, which affects the distribution. So we're not saying that someone cannot benefit from more than one program, because naturally they can. Yes, we understand the context of the environment in which we're operating in. Each of these government entities operate autonomous systems for managing the various social benefit programs. For an effective distribution system, this structure requires collaboration among entities to prevent a disjointed approach in the social benefit delivery chain. However, the absence of structured collaboration and integration led to a fragmented social benefit system, which forced individuals to navigate multiple entities providing the same information to assess their eligibility in obtaining the support they need. We're not speaking about beneficiaries or individuals obtaining more than one. And as I said, just to reiterate, the system as it is really to the disadvantage of those who should benefit, because they have to be navigating several ministries providing the same information. If you have a centralized database, just as Member Sibley has said, a beneficiary should be able to know that they can get 200,000 here, 400,000 here, 300,000 here. What we expect, however, is that each system should indicate the cap. We saw one such where the cap was not indicated. And for good governance and to track it, it should state. And everybody, it shouldn't be a guess and spell or be left for someone to tell the other, you know, you can go there and get it. There should be a centralized system that provides that and sets out the eligibility so that it also works to the benefit of the individual in terms of the efficiency of the delivery. Because I think that there are some benefits available that many taxpayers don't know about, because the information is spread across central government. We're speaking, this report is speaking to the administration of social benefits. We did not assess the efficacy of the various programs, and I want that to be understood. We're speaking about the administration. It's a fact that there is duplication. It's a fact that there is overlapping. And it is a fact that there is a substantial cost for managing the delivery of the social benefit. And we spoke about one in relation to the Ministry of Local Government, and I guess we'll address that next week. So if you can improve the efficiency through, I heard the PS about the steering committee that meets, but that steering committee is not going to prevent fraud. It's the operational system, it's the database, it's the information system that is managing the process that will aid in that process. And that is what this report is saying. Look, technology exists. We utilize that technology to improve the service delivery and to minimize the cost. Because we see here where one ministry is actually two separate units delivering programs, where that is something, as the PSS said, they're going to do a strategic review, because that is something that probably could be brought under one unit, and thereby reducing the cost associated with delivering these two programs. So I just wanted to clarify that,
Right.
Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you. Thank you. Let me just indicate to our colleagues online, we lost the internet connection when we had the power outage. I know the technical team here at the Parliament is trying to restore that. Member Witter?
Yes, quite a number of the observation that I would have made was addressed in respect of Member Sybil's observations and questions and the answer that came. And further to that, the Auditor General's intervention also helped in terms of some of the points that I wanted to raise. But I just want to ask one question of the Auditor General. Your concerns in terms of the fragmentation of the efforts of the different ministries. I know that there are some, ministries that are have regular programs that they administer on a yearly basis. But from time to time, there are cases of emergency that would trigger other benefits. How did you capture that in terms of your observation and your conclusion? Because I know that there could be some issues in relation to your day-to-day operation as a ministry, delivering assistance to persons in need, and then there is an emergency where everybody in Jamaica becomes the needy. How do you factor that in your observations in terms of what is being done in the ministries?
Okay, so I just want to ensure that I understand clearly what you're saying. You're speaking apart from the standard programs that exist to provide support. Your concern is how do you address the emergency? So there's a hurricane or any other flood, and the persons are in need of immediate assistance. Yes. Right. Yes. And that is precisely why the report spoke to that. That's precisely why you need a centralized system that actually has a database of all the vulnerable persons. Because at times the vulnerable persons cannot get to you. But you have to know that the vulnerable person is there, that the vulnerable person exists. But without a centralized system, it is difficult, I would think, let me state that it's my opinion, that it's difficult for the ministries to coordinate and deliver the assistance needed without input, say, from the parliamentarian or the councillors. In fact, the ministries there should be a centralized database system that provides assistance to the members of parliament, not the members of parliament providing the information, but the ministries providing that information. And they should be in a position to come together, probably through that committee, to indicate the different types of programs or the different types of assistance that is needed. But without that centralized system, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, but I'm saying, you're right, that's the point I'm trying to
That's
make.
everybody's vulnerable.
Is that when everybody, you have a system that would capture the vulnerable persons. But when there's an emergency, everybody becomes vulnerable, including me and you.
And that's true.
Right.
So, but no, this
How-
is...
how
this,
is that
Sorry.
response?
No, this is now the ministry's responsibility to have that database. And in fact, I think it is a requirement to have a register for vulnerable persons involved.
Yeah, but
right. So one of the priority actions, and my colleague is showing me here, reminding me that under the medium-term framework, the Ministry of Labor, Social Security, I think this is the Ministry of Housing, MOHE, Ministry of, sorry, my apologies, Ministry of Health and Ministry of Local Government, they're really supposed to identify a vulnerable group, and to not just a vulnerable group, you know, but also to indicate, to determine the specific needs.
I understand
of,
that clearly,
so that
you know.
is there. So I'm not challenging that at all.
Right, but I'm saying some of the issues that you would have picked up now
Yes.
could be as a consequence of the emergencies that we had in recent times that would have caused. Because remember now, you know, when you have an emergency, you have several agencies coming in to assist with the process. So you have a database of persons who are vulnerable that you would...
I appreciate what.
Testing, testing. Mine is working, but try yours, Frank. All right, yeah, go ahead, Frank.
Yes. Under the current program where the MPs were granted
I know.
$5 million to assist persons who would have been affected by the hurricane. I have my own personal experience where I submitted names to the ministry, and they were able, the Ministry of Housing was able to flag 9 persons from my constituency who would have received benefits before. And I was advised to remove them from the list of requests. So I appreciate that effort from the ministry. But I'm saying, you know, there's going to be problems in relation to even if you have a database that can identify the vulnerable, there's going to be a challenge when there is an emergency. And that is the point I'm going to make. How do we deal with that in terms of the whole coordination of making sure that the benefits are derived amongst the persons who really are in need? Okay,
so I understand the point that you're making. The Ministry of Local Government, I don't know if it's the Ministry of Local Government that you spoke with, because the Ministry of Local Government actually has a program to address that. Sorry, Ministry of Labor and Social Security, and as a short-term poverty alleviation, right. And this is specific for emergency matters. But yeah, there's a lot going behind me. I'm trying to listen at the same time. Thanks. Okay, right. I understand that. Thanks. Okay, so I get what you're saying, because emergencies will always bring challenges, and no program or system is foolproof. So the aim here is we can't eliminate inefficiencies, you know, but it's to improve the process.
Yes,
and then we would recognize that under emergency, your disaster risk response would have to be activated and robust enough to actually take measures that would not be necessary under normal circumstances. But I think what the point that what I am understanding is that you may be of the view that some of the issues that we raised here is maybe as a result of the emergency situations.
And I said that given the time of the audit.
Right, but then we would have taken that into consideration. So we were looking specifically at the operation, the standard operating procedures on a normal basis.
Right, and you know, and that's why I mentioned about the ministry being able to flag persons who would have benefits. So therefore, they are putting in system, and I think, you know, I want to commend them for that. And then, you know, look at the recommendation from you as we move forward in improvement in the system.
Chairman?
Yes, Member Morrison, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairman. Madam AG, I am so happy for the clarity that you have placed on this issue regarding duplication. Because in the case of my own constituency, regarding that $5 million benefit, I must commend the Ministry of Housing, who they have gone through this in a manner that I describe as painstaking to ensure that the persons who receive the help are the persons who need it most. 2 persons were flagged, and I was very concerned when I learned that one had benefited from a prior program and one benefited from the burial program. So thank you, Madam AG, for providing that clarity, right? Because I was very concerned that the fact that an individual may have received one benefit and the house is still far from satisfactory, that person could not reasonably become a beneficiary. So I'm happy for that. For clarity, I want to know if the duplication, if it refers to the ministries offering the same program, or if it is a matter that you want everything to be on stream. Because sometimes, even as members of parliament, when we are filling out these forms, we are saying, you know, we keep entering the TRN for the same person, giving the same information repeatedly. We wish there was a system where once we send in the name, they would have known who these persons are, make their random assessments, and so on. So I am happy for this clarity regarding the duplication of benefits and how it is interpreted, because it is also true that constituents on their own can access benefits, and we, the members of parliament, we don't know about it, right? So it's a case where one person may, let's say through the Ministry of Labor and the special fund from burial, that person may access maybe $200,000 or more, and probably we were not informed, right, about it. I'm just pulling that as an example. Right, so when we have a system, and as you have mentioned, Madam AG, where the system should also serve to inform or advise members of parliament, I'm happy with the direction in which this is going. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Member Morrison. And there's one thing I want to clarify, that I am not the one asking for this. It's the social protection strategy developed by the PIOJ that actually stated these as the objectives and the targets to work towards. The audit was undertaken to determine the achievement of this strategy. So insofar as it has been flagged as a deficiency, it is on the basis that that target has not been achieved. And if you look at the report, it will set out the specific targets under the medium-term framework, beginning from, well, between 2018 to 2021, 2021 to 2024, setting out specific. So I agree with the strategies. I can understand why the PIOJ would have flagged these as areas that needs to be addressed. But I want to make it clear that they are not my strategies or what. It's really a strategy that has been developed for the country to adopt. Thanks.
So, Madam AG, in the interest of abundant clarity, the challenge here is not that we may have several ministries, agencies, and departments that may be offering the same program, probably an outreach program. That's not the challenge.
It is the administration and the lack of coordination among the ministries and agencies in the current situation.
Okay.
PS, you have any, we're going to wrap up. I don't know if there are any colleagues with any further questions, but any closing remarks, PS?
Right. I just want to thank you, Chair and members. I want to go back. I wouldn't necessarily say there's a lack of coordination between the entities. I would have alluded earlier that we do have that cross-checking, at least for decision-making processes. The challenge will be always, we do have a finite budget, and we want to ensure that persons, the maximum number of persons can benefit from what is there. And so we take the point of the centralized database. We do. And as I would have said earlier, we have taken the steps in our ministry to develop databases and to be in collaboration with the Ministry of Labor as well as the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development. We do the cross-checking. And some members would have said that, you know, because we have done this, this is what has happened. I also want to say to members that to date we have not had any issues with fraud. Thankfully, we're not saying that it can't absolutely happen, but we have been very diligent in how we do our duties. We know, of course, that some Jamaicans are very, very crafty, and that's the truth. But in all fairness, we can say that the way in which our programs, and I'm saying yes, there's always the need for improvements, and we have taken note of the recommendations, and as a matter of fact, are actively implementing
Member Morrison,
some of
just
them.
mute your mic for me, please. Just mute your mic. Go ahead, Pierce.
Yes, we're actively implementing, thank you, Chair, the recommendations and increasing the collaboration. I expect that even in short order, we'll be having another meeting with the other two ministries that are mentioned in the report to advance the recommendations. And so I want to really thank the Auditor General and her team, as well as members of the House and colleagues here, and you as well, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you, PS. Can I have a motion for adjournment? Moved by Member Sibley, seconded by Member Chin. Thank you very much. We reconvene for the colleagues from the AG's department and the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Labor and Social Security and Ministry of Local Government next week, Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Thank you, Madam PS and your team.
Thank you.
Guarantors for student loan. Your government cares about your education, and we don't want you to ever have to worry about going to university. The Students Loan Bureau has a loan for you so you can focus on your future.
Hi everyone, here are 5 benefits of being a beneficiary of the Students Loan Bureau. 1. Benefit from our 99% approval rate. 2. Benefit from our low interest rate, so less burden when you need to repay. 3. Benefit from the fact that we require no collateral when applying. 4. We're giving you more time to focus on your studies while we focus on the financing. No need to worry about repaying while in school. Number 5. Receive a 14 months grace period after your